Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Sloan Analytics, MIT Conference. Again, this is the best first-rate conference, 11th year. We understand it's getting bigger and better every single year with a lot more focus with clients, service providers, students. Everybody kind of knows how to mix with each other these days, and entrepreneurs have a better idea of exactly what they want. And they also focus on some startups, and also startups that really have reached the next level. They've perfected their product, they know what they're doing. Brian Kopp's one of those guys. Catapult, President North America.
Yes.
Not President World, so he'll get there in a little while. So
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about Catapult, where it's been, where it's going.
Sure. So Catapult is an Australian-based company, and what we do is wearable analytics for elite and sub-elite and eventually just about every athlete. So what we do is we have a wearable device that we create, but it's really about data we can capture off athletes while you're playing the sport. So there's a lot you can do in a lab, but what we do is we have wearable device you wear while you're actually out there playing the sport, and it's around monitoring what you do, increasing your performance, trying to mitigate risk of injury, and when you are injured, get you back on the field.
So this is one of those devices that can't be very intrusive, or people wouldn't be wearing them.
Correct.
So tell us about it.
Sure. So it's a device that you wear in a compression shirt. There's an example. I'll give it to you. So not very big. You wear it on your back between your shoulder blades. And what it captures is all the micro movements of your body. So it knows when you're running, speed and distance. It knows when you change direction. It knows when you're jumping. And it collects all this data on that device, or it can stream it live onto a software. So you know in practice what you're doing, in games where it's allowed what you're doing. And with this one device, we can measure a lot about what the athlete's doing when they're actually out there playing the sport.
How many competitors are in the space with you? Is this it?
No, we're by far the market leader. We have 1,200 clients around the world. I think the next closest competitor has 200. So we've been doing this for a decade in Australia, out of Australia. Here in the U.S., it's really grown in the last couple of years. So there are a lot of emerging companies trying to put sensors on athletes, but to us, it's not about the hardware. The hardware is an enabler to getting the data. So we spend a lot of time on analyzing that data. It's why we're here at this conference, trying to talk to people that can help us take it to the next level. So it's really, this data allows us to get the data we need, this device does, but it's really about what you do with it and make it as specific to the
Well, let's talk about both of those though. What is the biggest market disruptor, point of uniqueness down the road for you? Is it the flexibility of the device itself, or the diverse application of the data that you receive?
We always thought it was going to be about the device becoming commoditized. We think that's less likely just because there's only so far you can go with the devices. We really think it's going to be about the data, making it sport specific. So we do a lot of work on turning our analytics into something that's specific to a sport like basketball, football, hockey. A new sport we're going to work in is baseball. Major League Baseball is allowing these devices to be worn in games this year. So being able to get that type of data in games for a sport like baseball is brand new. So it's going to be about analytics, but it's also going to be about connecting the dots with other parts of what you do. So we last year acquired Exos, which is a video platform company. So taking the data we have, connecting it with video, so not just how hard were you working, but what were you doing. Let's go look at the video of that instance as well.
So Brian, tell me what you think is going to be the easiest path for universal adoption at the sport level. Are the teams going to mandate their players wearing it because they see it as a competitive advantage? Are the leagues going to say you ought to wear it? Are the insurance providers? Who's going to push it to the next level?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're talking to all of the leagues at various stages about how it benefits their athletes. We're obviously working a lot with the teams. I think the players have to be part of the conversation. You're putting this device on a player, so the players union, getting them comfortable with the device, showing them that it's a value to them, showing them that it helps them to extend their career, it helps them get back on the field and ultimately sign a next big contract if you're a professional player. But even down to the youth level, we're starting to work with high school athletes to say, hey, it's not just about increasing your performance, but how hard are you working? Let's not overwork high school kids that are trying to make it to the next level, or what they're doing throughout the chain. So I think there's going to be a lot of people involved in the conversation, as there should be. We haven't quite gotten to the insurance companies, but I'm sure that'll come at some point down the line.
Of course it will. And are there any leagues that are less malleable than others, let's say?
They all are their different stages of this. In college, we're allowed in games, which is great because then we can look at game and practice data. In most professional leagues, we're not yet, but that's a conversation we're having with both the leagues and the players' union to answer questions, because they should ask questions. It's a new information. You don't want it to be used the wrong way. You want the athletes to be comfortable with it, the teams get value, the leagues be comfortable. So, like I said, Major League Baseball is allowing it in games. Some of the other leagues are not quite there yet, but we're in those discussions.
And without getting inside baseball, so to speak, what's the prototypical business deal that you would put forth with a team or a league or an individual?
So we have a subscription model. So what we provide is not only a hardware, but also a software and a service. So they pay us a subscription license, an annual license, which typically gives them access to not only the hardware, but our software and our support resources, because we have a number of analytics, sports scientists on staff that provide support. So it is a software model that we provide to people.
Are we going to transcend into the consumer market in the not too distant future like a Fitbit, or is there a line that you're drawing?
No, I mean, we think that this type of device applies all the way down the chain. So not just professional, college, high school, but eventually what we call prosumer, people that are still part of teams that are serious about sport, may not be doing it at a collegiate or a professional level, but are still serious about sport. Because what we allow you to do is maximize what your output is and keep you from doing too much.
Right.
So that applies even for me when I'm trying to play in my my old man's basketball league. It still applies to making sure you don't push yourself too hard.
That's a greater segue to an even older man. So what about lazy people who just want to make it look like they know what they're doing, right?
There you go. We can. I'm sure we can come up with something.
Yeah, exactly. The remedial version, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the business side of this, the business show, after all. So perfected in Australia. Then how do you make the decision to launch in an entirely different continent? Do you patent first? Do you do proof of concept with teams or leagues first? How do you enter another market?
Yeah, it came naturally because teams started hiring Australian sports scientists, and they said, hey, we got this device down in Australia you should use. So it happened gradually through that. Certainly we applied and did all the patents, made sure we had all the protections, and then we started building the team. So I joined about 3 years ago, and in that time we've built out a team to better service this market. But it really started with the teams themselves seeing a need for this type of coverage and information, and now we're making it more specific to sports here in the U.S. like football and baseball.
The founders had a vision and an epiphany, and it worked in Australia. Was there a similar magic moment to say, let's take it to the States?
A lot of it started with Florida State football. The year they won the national championship, they were very vocal with the fact that Catapult, not just this technology that we're hidden, they mentioned Catapult by name. Jimbo Fisher gave us a lot of credit for how they were able to keep their players healthy and on the field. And that was back in a few years ago, and it kind of took off from there, because once that got out, everyone's like, what is this this Australian mystery technology that's helping everybody out?
Are you guys past the point of the normal angel investor scrambling for money process?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually a publicly traded company in Australia. Still pretty small, but growing. We are now profitable with our acquisition we made last year. But we're growing very well, and it helps to have a great story to bring back to the Australian investors about what we're doing in the U.S. and Europe and other markets. But yeah, luckily we've gone past the point of where a lot of technologies are. If we've crossed that chasm of getting enough adoption that we have a stable foundation we can build on.
Well, that's a really interesting perception, because the noise out there is everybody's perfect idea. And the smaller sound, the crickets you hear, the perfect ideas going to market.
Yeah, well, it's what we hope that we've built over time with the clients we have, the credibility we have, is a platform that we're always looking around to see what those ideas are. Because if we see a good idea, we can enable it on our platform. And rather than these companies out here starting from scratch, you now have a universe of 1,200 clients, diversity around the world that you can leverage off of the Catapult platform.
Are we moving toward an era in your world with one device fits all? Do we have some common thing that can tell time and do everything else, or is that just not something that's
No, I mean, you hear people say that there will be multiple devices all over a player or an athlete. I think that's hard. I mean, people don't want to wear many things. I think our device is worn with a compression shirt. One of the things we're looking at right now is how the smart garment industry is evolving. So can we integrate what we collect, which is what your body moves, with what garments collect in terms of your heart rate, your breathing rate, and how your body responds to that movement. If you have those two pieces together, you have everything you need.
So an entrepreneur who is a classic entrepreneur for a couple reasons. You got a product that proven, but not here, and then you take it here. What does somebody in your position worry about when he gets up in the morning?
Many things.
Business-wise. I'm not interested. We don't have enough time for the other.
Worried about what my 5 kids are up to, but
yeah, right.
I think that the biggest challenge we have is there's so many opportunities that we got to prioritize them. Yeah. We don't want to go after too many things.
Good point.
That we dilute ourselves. There's also an element of what else is out there, what's around the corner that could be disruptive, and luckily we've got to the point where it'd be very difficult to disrupt our position, but that's where we want to look out to make sure if there are disruptions, let's be in front of it, and let's be a part of the disruption rather than making it happen to us.
And I'm sure entrepreneurs have a collateral issue and concern about making sure you cover the market, stay ahead of your competitors,
sure,
and not get out there so quickly you're diluted or overexposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's one of those issues, along with your 5 kids, that deals with itself. All right, where are you 5 years from now?
I think that we are everywhere. I think that we're at every sport. I think we're in games and practice. I think that when you go to play pickup basketball, we're there. We want these devices to be on every athlete that's playing, that is serious about sport. And if we accomplish that goal, it'll unlock so much information to help athletes to drive into new areas, to eventually change the way the sport is played, potentially change the rules of the sport to make it safer. So there's a lot of ways that we can do, and I think you'll see that in the next 5 years.
And just another sales question relative to the next 5 years.
Yep.
Volume sale, league down, advantage of that is you're sold in all the time versus the kind of competitive advantage, I want to be the first and be out ahead of everybody.
Yep.
How do those two juxtapose in your world?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're doing both a bottom-up and a top-down approach, because the answer is whatever approach gets us in the door. So we're having league-wide discussions, not only in this country but around the world, where there's a media angle to it. You put a device on a player and you're putting stuff on TV. You see that more in international markets than you do here yet, but that's a top-down approach that provides value, opens up new value, gives you that volume. But also we do the bottoms up because it's important that each individual team understands and uses this data. The competitive advantage is interesting because this is a very personal device. What it measures from you is very different than what it measures from me. We could do the exact same drill and the outputs be slightly different because our bodies are different. So it's a very personal device. So we still want to make sure that we're providing that bottoms-up approach to helping the teams unlock value. But the top-down is important too because the leagues are around the world and the rights holders are going to be a big part of this.
So ladies and gentlemen, in a tempest of everybody's perfect ideas, this one stands out as far as ingenuity, commitment, and it's really in the market and it really works. Ron, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Ron Kopp.